19 years ago, John walked into a courtroom as a free man. When he walked out, he'd been sentenced to life in prison for murder. The evidence looked solid. The witnesses sounded sure. To the jury, he was a cold-blooded killer. But there was one thing no one in that room knew. The man John was supposed to have killed wasn't dead at all. And in just 72 hours, that dead man was about to walk back into town and expose how badly they got it wrong. His name was John Mitchell, 32 years old, born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, a small city tucked in the foothills where everyone knew everyone. Church was still the center of Sunday mornings, and rumors spread faster than truth. John worked as a mechanic at Patterson's Auto Repair on Main Street. He'd been there for 8 years, good with his hands, reliable, the kind of guy who'd stay late to help you fix your car even when you couldn't afford to pay him. He lived in a modest apartment on the east side of town with his girlfriend Angela and her 7-year-old son Caleb. John wasn't Caleb's biological father, but he treated the boy like his own, helped with homework, played catch in the backyard, showed up to every school event, made pancakes on Sunday mornings. John had a past, though, nothing violent, but not clean either. When he was in his early 20s, he'd been arrested for marijuana possession, served 6 months probation. Another time he got caught selling stolen car parts. Another year of probation. He wasn't proud of it, but he'd turned his life around, stayed out of trouble, focused on work and family, kept his head down. His favorite thing was Sunday mornings. He'd wake up early, make pancakes for Caleb, then they'd all go to the park. Simple moments, the kind you don't appreciate until they're ripped away. He had no idea that by sunrise, police would be at his door, and they'd already decided he was a murderer. On the night of October 14, 2004, something happened on the other side of Greenville that would destroy John's life. A man named Bobby Lawson went missing. Bobby was 38 years old, known around town but not for good reasons. He had a long criminal record stretching back to his teenage years: drug dealing, assault, theft, possession of stolen property. He'd been in and out of jail since he was 18. Bobby's girlfriend, Tina Grant, called the police around 11 p.m., frantic. She said Bobby had gone out to meet someone and never came back. She didn't know who, she didn't know where, but he'd been gone for hours and wasn't answering his phone. Police searched the area. Around 2 a.m., they found Bobby's car abandoned on a rural road about 5 miles outside of town. The driver's side door was wide open, keys still in the ignition, engine cold. But Bobby was nowhere to be found. Inside the car, they found blood. Not a lot, but enough to concern them. On the driver's seat, on the steering wheel, small droplets on the dashboard. The lab later confirmed it was Bobby's blood. What no one knew that night, not Tina, not the police, not John, was that Bobby Lawson wasn't dead at all. 2 days later, on October 16, 2004, police came to John's apartment at 6 in the morning. John was asleep. Angela answered the door. 2 detectives pushed past her, showed a warrant, went straight to the bedroom. "John Mitchell, you're under arrest for the murder of Robert Lawson." John sat up, confused. "Murder? What are you talking about? I don't know what happened to Bobby." "You can tell us at the station." They cuffed him, led him out in his t-shirt and sweatpants. Neighbors came out onto their porches, watching, whispering. At the police station, 2 detectives sat across from John, Detective Harris and Detective Coleman, both convinced they had their man. "John, we know you did it," Detective Harris said, leaning forward. "We have witnesses. We have evidence. The best thing you can do right now is tell us the truth." John's voice shook. "I didn't do anything. I don't know where Bobby is. I haven't seen him in weeks. We have someone who says you and Bobby had a dispute. Money, $3,000 over car parts." "That's not true. I barely knew Bobby." "Then why does his girlfriend say he was scared of you?" "I don't know. She's lying." They went at him for hours, told him they had witnesses who placed him with Bobby that night, told him if he just confessed, it would be easier, told him he was going down either way. John kept saying the same thing. "I was home with Angela and Caleb. I didn't see Bobby. I didn't hurt anyone." But the detectives didn't believe him. John's trial began in March 2005. The prosecutor was a sharp woman named Linda Hayes. She had a reputation: tough, ambitious, high conviction rate. In her opening statement, she laid out a simple story for the jury. John Mitchell owed Bobby Lawson money, $3,000 from an under-the-table car parts deal that went bad. Bobby wanted his money. He threatened John, so John decided to get rid of the problem. He lured Bobby to a remote location, killed him, and disposed of the body. This is premeditated murder. The evidence she presented was circumstantial, but she presented it with absolute certainty. First witness, Tina Grant, Bobby's girlfriend. She testified about the dispute over money, said Bobby had mentioned John's name multiple times in the days before he disappeared. Did Bobby ever say he was afraid of John Mitchell? Linda asked. Tina hesitated. Yeah, he said John was acting weird, like he was planning something. Like he was planning to hurt Bobby? Yeah. But on cross-examination, John's public defender pressed her. Ms. Grant, did Bobby ever actually say John threatened him? Well, not in those exact words. So Bobby never directly said John threatened him, correct? Not directly, but yes or no, Ms. Grant? No, not directly. It should have weakened her testimony, but the prosecutor moved on quickly. Next witness, Deshaun Carter, a known drug dealer with a long rap sheet, currently facing 10 years in prison for distribution. But he'd made a deal. In exchange for testifying against John, his charges would be reduced to probation. Deshaun told the jury he saw John and Bobby together on the night Bobby disappeared. I saw them arguing near the old mill on Route 9. It was heated. Then they got in Bobby's car and drove off together. What time was this? Linda asked. Around 10 p.m. John's lawyer challenged him. Mr. Carter, you're facing 10 years in prison, correct? Yeah. And in exchange for testifying here today, the prosecutor agreed to drop those charges down to probation, correct? Yeah. So you have every reason to tell this jury what the prosecutor wants to hear, don't you? Deshaun shifted in his seat. I'm telling the truth. Are you? Or are you just trying to stay out of prison? I'm telling the truth. But the damage was done. The jury had heard what they needed to hear. Finally, a forensic expert testified about the blood in Bobby's car. The blood belongs to Robert Lawson. The amount and pattern suggest a violent altercation occurred inside the vehicle. But here's what the expert didn't say. There was no DNA linking John to the car, no fingerprints, no physical evidence connecting him to the scene. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. We find the defendant, John Mitchell, guilty of murder in the first degree, Angela screamed. John's public defender put his head in his hands. John stared straight ahead, unable to process what had just happened. 2 weeks later, the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. John was 32 years old, and the man he supposedly killed, he was alive, somewhere, and no one knew it yet. John was transferred to McCormick Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison in South Carolina. His first night, John lay on a thin mattress in a cell barely bigger than a closet. His cellmate, a man named Darrell serving 20 years for armed robbery, gave him the basics. Keep your head down. Don't trust anyone. Don't talk about your case. John nodded, but inside he was screaming. He was innocent, and no one cared. Over the weeks and months, John learned how to survive, how to move through the system, how to avoid trouble. He worked in the prison laundry, stood for count 3 times a day, ate in the cafeteria at assigned times, walked the yard when allowed. But every night, lying in his bunk, he thought about Angela and Caleb, about the life he'd lost. Angela visited at first, once a month, then every few months. She'd bring Caleb. They'd talk through a phone, separated by thick glass. Caleb was 7 when John went to prison. He didn't understand why John couldn't come home. He'd press his small hand against the glass. John would press his hand on the other side, as close as they could get. By the time Caleb was 10, he barely remembered John as anything other than a voice on the phone. By the time he was 13, the visit stopped completely. Angela had moved on, met someone else, someone who wasn't in prison. John couldn't blame her. but it destroyed him. John filed his first appeal in 2006, 1 year after his conviction. It was denied. The court said the evidence was sufficient. He filed another in 2008, denied. Another in 2010, denied. Another in 2013, denied. Every time the answer was the same. The jury heard the evidence and made their decision. There is no basis for reversal. Looking back, it's clear what went wrong. The investigators suffered from tunnel vision. Once they identified John as a suspect, they stopped looking for anyone else. They didn't investigate other people Bobby might have owed money to. They didn't follow up on leads suggesting Bobby was involved with dangerous drug dealers who had more reason to want him gone. They didn't question why there was no body, no murder weapon, no physical evidence. They just assumed John had hidden the body well. They didn't question Deshaun Carter's credibility, even though he was a convicted criminal with everything to gain by lying. They didn't dig into Tina Grant's story, even though her timeline didn't quite add up, and she had a history of unreliable statements. They built a case on assumptions, incentivized testimony, and circumstantial evidence. And it worked. John was convicted. Case closed. For years, John kept writing, kept filing motions, kept screaming that he was innocent. He wrote to the Innocence Project, to legal aid organizations, to lawyers, to journalists. Most letters went unanswered. The few responses he got said the same thing. "We're sorry, but we can't take your case at this time." Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Months became years. John turned 35, 40, 45, 50. His hair started to gray. His face hardened. His body changed from working out in the yard, trying to stay strong. He missed everything. Birthdays, holidays, weddings, funerals. His mother died in 2011. He wasn't allowed to attend her funeral. His father died in 2016. Again, no funeral. Just a phone call from his sister, crying, telling him dad was gone. Inside prison, John became known as the guy who killed Bobby Lawson. Other inmates whispered about him. Some believed he was innocent. Most didn't care. The emotional and psychological damage was immense. John developed anxiety, depression. He had nightmares. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, convinced he'd never get out. By year 15, he'd almost given up hope. In early 2023, a lawyer named Sarah Chen with the Southern Innocence Project was reviewing cold cases. John's name came across her desk. Sarah had been working on wrongful conviction cases for 12 years. She'd helped free 9 people. John's case caught her attention for one reason. There was no body. She requested the original case files, spent weeks reviewing everything, the trial transcripts, the witness statements, the forensic reports, the investigation notes. And she noticed something off. The entire case was built on the testimony of 2 people with serious credibility issues and blood in a car. That was it. No body, no murder weapon, no physical evidence linking John to anything. Sarah started digging into Bobby Lawson's background, his criminal history, his associates, his enemies. She also searched for any record of Bobby after October 2004. And that's when she found something shocking. Bobby Lawson had a driver's license issued in 2007 in Jacksonville, Florida. He had a traffic citation from 2010 in Atlanta, Georgia. He had employment records showing he worked at a warehouse in Raleigh, North Carolina from 2015 to 2019. He had a hospital admission record from 2018 for a broken arm. Bobby Lawson wasn't dead. He'd been alive the entire time. Sarah cross-checked the records, ran fingerprints through the system, compared photos. It was him, no doubt. Sarah tracked down Bobby's last known address in Raleigh. She called the number listed on his employment file. A woman answered, "Hello? Hi, I'm looking for Robert Lawson. Is he available?" "Bobby, yeah, hold on." Sarah's heart stopped. And then a voice she never expected to hear. "This is Bobby. Mr. Lawson, my name is Sarah Chen. I'm a lawyer with the Southern Innocence Project. I need to ask you something very important. Are you aware that a man named John Mitchell is serving life in prison for your murder?" There was a long silence. "What? No, I didn't know that." "You've been declared a murder victim, Mr. Lawson. For 19 years. Another silence. That's crazy. I'm not dead. I can see that. Mr. Lawson, I need you to come forward. An innocent man has lost 19 years of his life. Bobby hesitated. I left Greenville because I owed some dangerous people money. I thought if I disappeared, they'd leave me alone. I didn't know anyone thought I was dead. Will you testify? Will you help free John Mitchell? Bobby paused, then, yeah, I'll do it. Sarah contacted the Greenville Police Department immediately. Within 24 hours, detectives had confirmed Bobby's identity through fingerprints and a DNA sample. Bobby agreed to come back to South Carolina, to give a formal statement, to appear in court if needed. Bobby told investigators everything. He'd left Greenville in October 2004 because he owed money to drug dealers. Dangerous people. He thought if he disappeared, they'd assume he was dead and stop looking for him. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. Not Tina, not his family, no one. What about the blood in your car? A detective asked. I got into a fight with some guys a few days before I left. Took a hit to the face. Nose bled everywhere. I left the car on the side of the road because it was a piece of junk and I didn't want anyone tracking me. The blood, the disappearance, the abandoned car. It all made sense now. Bobby Lawson had faked his own disappearance to escape his problems, and an innocent man had paid the price. In less than 72 hours, the man John was convicted of murdering walked back into town, and the lie finally fell apart. Sarah went to the prison to tell John in person. She sat down across from him in the visiting room. John, I have something to tell you. Bobby Lawson is alive. John stared at her. What? Bobby Lawson, the man you were convicted of killing. He's alive. I spoke to him. He's given a statement. He's agreed to testify. John couldn't speak. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He stared at Sarah, trying to process what she just said. He's alive? Yes, he's been alive this entire time, and we're getting you out. John put his face in his hands. 19 years. 19 years of his life. For a murder that never happened. He started to cry. Not out of relief, out of rage, out of grief for everything he'd lost. I told them, he whispered. I told them I didn't do it. On November 3rd, 2023, John's exoneration hearing took place in a Greenville County courtroom. Bobby Lawson was there, sitting in the gallery, very much alive. The new prosecutor, a man named David Ellis, stood before the judge. Your Honor, the state concedes that Robert Lawson is alive. We have confirmed his identity through fingerprints, DNA, and multiple forms of documentation. In light of this evidence, the state moves to vacate John Mitchell's conviction immediately. The judge, a woman named Patricia Nguyen, looked at Bobby sitting in the gallery. Mr. Lawson, please stand. Bobby stood. You are aware that Mr. Mitchell has spent 19 years in prison because you were believed to be dead, correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you had no knowledge of this until 2 weeks ago? No, Your Honor. If I'd known, I would have come forward sooner. The judge turned to John. Her voice softened. Mr. Mitchell, based on the evidence presented today, I am vacating your conviction and ordering your immediate release. On behalf of the state of South Carolina, I apologize for the grave injustice you have suffered. John couldn't hold it together. He collapsed into Sarah's arms, sobbing. 19 years, finally over. On November 4th, 2023, at 9:30 a.m., John Mitchell walked out of McCormick Correctional Institution, a free man. The sun was so bright it hurt his eyes. He stood outside the gates, breathing fresh air that didn't smell like concrete and sweat and fear. Sarah was waiting. So were a few supporters from the Innocence Project and media cameras. Lots of them. John, how does it feel to be free? John, what do you want to say to the people who put you here? John, are you going to sue? John stopped, looked at the cameras, his voice shook. I don't know how I feel yet. Ask me in a year. The world had changed. Everyone had smartphones. Cars looked different. Buildings he remembered were gone. New ones had replaced them. John sat in the back of Sarah's car, staring out the window like a child. His sister was waiting at her house. She'd aged. Gray hair, wrinkles, but she was there. They hugged, she sobbed. "I never stopped believing you." Caleb came too. He was 26 now, a grown man, married, had a daughter of his own. They stood in the driveway looking at each other. Caleb didn't remember the man who used to make him pancakes. John didn't recognize the boy who'd grown up without him. "Hi, John," Caleb said quietly. John wanted to say, "Call me Dad," but he didn't have that right anymore. "Hi, Caleb, it's good to see you." They shook hands like strangers. The state of South Carolina offered John compensation. $500,000? About $26,000 for every year he spent in prison. It sounded like a lot. But what's the price of 19 years? Of missing your son grow up? Of losing your parents? Of becoming a stranger to your own life? No amount of money could give him that back. Tina Grant, Bobby's ex-girlfriend who testified that Bobby was scared of John, still lives in Greenville. When reporters contacted her about John's exoneration, she refused to comment. She has faced no legal consequences for her testimony. Deshaun Carter, the drug dealer who testified he saw John and Bobby together that night, is still alive. Lives in Georgia now. Also refused to comment. He has faced no legal consequences for his false testimony. The detectives who investigated John's case, Detective Harris and Detective Coleman, have both retired. The police department issued a brief statement. "We regret the outcome of this case and are reviewing our procedures to prevent similar situations in the future." No one was disciplined, no one was fired, no one was held accountable. Linda Hayes, the prosecutor who convicted John, retired in 2018. She has not commented publicly on the case. She has faced no legal consequences. John Mitchell's story is not unique. According to the National Registry of Exonerations, over 3,000 people in the United States have been exonerated since 1989. The average time served before exoneration? 14 years. But John's case exposes 3 massive systemic failures that happen over and over again. First, tunnel vision. Once investigators decide someone is guilty, they stop looking for other suspects. They only gather evidence that supports their theory. They ignore evidence that contradicts it. In John's case, once police focused on him, they stopped investigating other people Bobby owed money to. They stopped looking for alternative explanations. Second, incentivized witnesses. The criminal justice system gives people enormous incentives to lie. Reduce sentences, drop charges, immunity from prosecution. Deshaun Carter was facing 10 years in prison. He had every reason to say whatever the prosecutor wanted him to say, and the system rewarded him for it. Third, no body convictions. Prosecutors can and do secure murder convictions without a body, without physical evidence, based entirely on circumstantial evidence and witness testimony. In John's case, there was no body because there was no murder, but the system didn't care. And here's the thing. For every John Mitchell who gets exonerated, there are likely dozens more who are still sitting in prison, innocent, with no one fighting for them. People convicted on bad evidence, false testimony, mistaken identity, police misconduct. John is 51 years old now. He's in therapy, trying to process the trauma, trying to rebuild a life from nothing. He works part-time at an auto repair shop. The owner is a friend of his sister. It's not much, but it's something. He's trying to reconnect with Caleb. It's hard. They're strangers trying to become family. He's trying to figure out who he is in a world that moved on without him. Bobby Lawson is still alive, still living in North Carolina. When asked about John, he said, "I feel terrible about what happened. I didn't know. If I'd known, I would have come forward sooner." But guilt doesn't give John his years back. The courtroom where John was convicted is still there. Cases are still being tried. Juries are still making decisions based on testimony that might not be true. And somewhere, right now, another innocent person is probably sitting in prison, waiting for their Bobby Lawson to walk back into town. John Mitchell lost 19 years because police decided he was guilty and stopped looking for the truth. Because witnesses lied to save themselves. Because a man who wasn't dead was declared murdered. No body, no weapon, no physical evidence. Just assumptions and incentives and a system that doesn't care about getting it right as long as someone gets punished. John stands outside the Greenville County Courthouse now, looking up at the building where his life was destroyed. "I'm free," he says quietly, "but I'll never get those years back. I missed watching Caleb grow up. I missed my parents' funerals. I missed everything." He pauses. "And the people who did this to me, the detectives, the prosecutor, the witnesses who lied, they're all fine, living their lives like nothing happened." Facts: over 3,000 exonerations in the U.S. since 1989. Average time served, 14 years. 69% of DNA exonerees are people of color. False or misleading testimony is a factor in 54% of wrongful convictions. Tunnel vision and confirmation bias are cited in 75% of wrongful conviction cases. But there are small victories. John has met his granddaughter, Caleb's daughter, Emma. She's 3 years old. She doesn't know that Grandpa John spent 19 years in prison. When she looks at him, she just sees Grandpa. And for John, that's enough. If the man they said was dead can walk back into town after 19 years, how many others are sitting in cells right now for crimes that never even happened? If you want more stories exposing wrongful convictions and systemic injustice, subscribe. Share this story. These cases need to be told.